it is 7 o'clock, and this is going to be recorded and posted later, so I think we can get started. And if folks miss a little bit, that's okay. Hi, I'm Keela Pfister. I work for the Alaska Children's Trust, the organization putting on this webinar series. So this is the first of our 4 Child Abuse Prevention Month series. So next up, we have the History and Hope training for parents, as well as the Strengthening Families. And then we have a talk at the end of the month on how to talk to your kids about racism, sexism, and discrimination. So this is the first of those trainings, and we are so grateful to our speaker today, Rebecca Newton, who joins us from North Carolina, where it's a lot later in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rebecca has worked in the field of digital safety for children for about 30 years now. She has 5 grandkids, so she knows this subject very well, both professionally and personally. And she joins us. Her website is superawesome.com. So she works over there. And we have another person entering our chat right now. Awesome. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Rebecca. Oh, and we have a cat entering too.
Yeah, we have a cat. Okay.
I'll hand it over to you, Rebecca. So you can
all right.
go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm really happy to be here, and especially happy that it's Alaska, because I've always wanted to go there, so I'm looking forward to making that happen at some point in my life. But I am now with 5 grandchildren between 18 and 5, and 4 boys and 1 girl. And my children also grew up online as teens, so that's how long I've been doing this. So it's an interesting time, and historically, I guess this is for about 5 years now, maybe a little more than that. Parents of young children are people who grew up online as young people or children. So that's a game changer for everybody in the online world. In the early days, in the 90s, most parents didn't even know what the online world was, and most people didn't know. So things have changed a lot in the last 26, 27, almost 30 years now, I guess. And so just a little tiny background on me is that I started out at AOL. I've worked with kids all my life, but I started out in '94 at AOL, and by default ended up with all the kids because I was the only one that was thrilled to take them all. There weren't very many kids online back then, and they were all teenagers, 13, 14, 15. And so I took over AOL Kids and was thrilled to do that. And that's when I discovered that there was this underworld that was just starting to happen back then. And so it was early days, and there wasn't much support in the law enforcement world because they weren't even online, right? So it was a lot of work to try to get some kind of support to do something about online behavior that we witnessed that we thought was dangerous or illegal. As time has gone on, it's changed, of course, and now there's lots of support for law enforcement and non-government offices like nonprofits and things like that to give parents and teachers and law enforcement agencies and industry workers like myself support. So I'm thrilled about that, just to be honest. It was just really tough in the early days, but and kids online are children of parents who grew up online. So there's an extra layer of knowledge and protection that wasn't there before. So that's helped. But having said that, there's also a lot more social networking, gaming, and opportunity. I won't say that it's it's all exponential, right? Depending on how many, if you've got 2 billion people online, I can't remember what the latest numbers are, then the percentages are going to be higher of problems in the online world. So it's all relative to how many people are online, but it doesn't help that there's so much gaming and social interaction online. And particularly, just to be clear, I don't think there's problems around every single corner, but the prevalence of online problems for kids, and I'd say under 16s or maybe under 13s, is pretty low compared to the offline world. That's a statistical fact, research fact. The teenage years are a little different, and there's not as much support from the big social networks such as Facebook and Twitter. And I know people, I have colleagues who work there, they do the best they know how, considering they have like a billion users, but I believe they could do better. That's my personal opinion. And I don't think it's lack of caring. I think it just seems so daunting and big that they're not sure what to do. But anyway, but the good news is, to start off from the top with the good news, is that about 94% of what happens online in the online world is great. It's collaborative, it's fun, it's educational, it's culturally rich. Everything about it, about the online world and the net, it has changed our lives, and for the most part, for the better. But there are solutions to keep everyone safe, and that to me is also good news. We're not at the mercy of any companies or corporations or whatever. So I just want to start with an acronym that we call CSAM. There's going to be a few acronyms, and I've got a sheet here that I'm happy to share with everybody via the ACT. So if you want this sheet of facts and URLs and resources, I'm happy to share that, and you can request that via ACT. So CSAM stands for Child Sexual Abuse Material, and that's the easiest way for us to, in the industry, and for you as parents or teachers or law enforcement, to refer to abuse material. And it just helps us. It helps everybody if you just say CSAM, and then pretty much everybody in the industry knows what you're talking about. So I'm going to use that acronym quite a bit. And I'm going to talk about the reality. I'm going to start with talking about the reality of the online kids world. And before I get deep into this, you're certainly free to stop me at any time, raise your hand, type something in the chat. At the bottom of your screen, if you hover with your mouse, there's a chat icon and something called reactions, and that'll have a raise hand. And so we'll figure that, we'll work through that, and I'll try to keep an eye on that. So feel free to stop me. So the reality of the online kids world now, today, is that I was on a conference call last week, and Facebook last year, in 2020, which includes WhatsApp and Instagram, because they own both of those, reported 20.3 million CSAM reports in 2020. That's 20,300,000 reports of suspected, probable, or potential child sexual abuse material. That's a lot. Snapchat reported 155,000 reports. Twitter cited 65,000, and TikTok had 22,600. The place where that I run, it's called PopJam, POPJAM. It's a kids, sort of a Pinterest for kids, and there's no private chat by design. I learned early on in my career that private chat and anybody under 13 and arguably under 16, there's no place for it within the walls or confines of a kid's or young person's app or website. That's where all the potentially bad stuff happens. So every place that I've worked in the last 15 years, I've removed or not designed chat, private chat. Everything's public. So at PopJam, we have enough space. It's sort of like Twitter for text, but everybody can see it. And it, of course, goes through pretty advanced artificially intelligent filter software. So we had one report in 2020, and that was the first report I'd had in 3 or 4 years. And so when I saw that there were 20 million for Facebook, I thought, oh my God. And I was worried about this one report. Now, what we had never went live because we have pretty sophisticated software that stops any potential CSAM from getting through our site. So we saw it before it ever got anyplace. One of our moderators saw it, and we could follow up on it pretty quickly. And just so you know how this works, when anybody in the industry, in the kids industry, finds something that's illegal or dangerous or potentially illegal, they have a legal responsibility to report it to law enforcement or the correct agency. In the US, it's called Cyber Tip Line. We're going to talk about that in a minute. It's part of what's called NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They are the central hub in the US for all CSAM. And they're an amazing organization. They've been around since about 2001. And so we are required to report whatever we suspect as being problematic, and then NCMEC or Cyber Tip Line takes it from there and deals with it. And of course, we would ban that account. But when we report it, we also give them an IP address, and that's something unique to every machine or phone. For the most part, sometimes they're not unique, but we give them that, and we give them any other information we might have on the suspect, is the only word I can think of, or the victim in some cases. And NCMEC or Cyber Tip Line follows through and has direct access to the service providers like Gmail or Google and Microsoft, et cetera. And they work very closely together so they can actually find out who and where and when and which house or which place that person was. So it's not hard to find people. It just you have to have probable cause. So we'll talk about that for parents in a minute. So gaming, as you probably know, have experienced or may experience, I hope not, can be addictive for anybody, but it is especially addictive for young people. Not all gaming, but some gaming is purposely built to create serotonin uptake, to sort of the dings, like when you go to Facebook and it says, you've had 27 responses to your post. It does something to your brain that says, ooh, 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 ooh. Same with your phone when it goes ding or something. So, and in the old days at AOL, it was, you've got mail. People would get very excited about that, right? So the gaming developers, not all of them, but some of them have designed gaming the way casinos design the ringing and the bells and that sort of thing. And it's unfortunate that anybody is on the other end of that and doesn't quite understand that, most likely, or in some cases. But children especially, their brains are forming until they're 21. So now we've got a whole generation, maybe two, who've grown up with that ping, 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 ping all the time. So, I think it's to our advantage to keep that in mind and make sure that the screen time is monitored, and that there are some downtimes. And nobody ever wants to hear that, and especially a young person, like, no, I don't want to not be on my phone. But I just don't, personally, just from everything I've read, everything I've learned and experienced over the last 27 years, I don't think it's healthy to leave for anybody to just keep their screens on 24/7. I think and especially for kids, just as you know, I have 5 grandchildren, and the boys that are now 18 and 17, when they were about 10 and 8, 9, were addicted to something, Zelda or some kind of game. And it took us a while, their parents a while, to figure out why they were falling asleep in school, etc. And they were up at 3 in the morning, like with iPads, and we did everything. They did everything. They locked down passwords. They finally had to get some software that would not allow anybody within a radius of their home to get on their network without them unlocking it. The kids just found every way around it. So it can be highly addictive. So it's important to, I'm not saying everybody should be on lockdown, but I think if you're finding that your child's falling asleep at school and not easily getting up in the morning, there's probably something going on in the gaming world. And also, I just wanted to point out that those reports, the 20.3 million CSAM reports from Facebook, etc., TikTok's 22.5 thousand, each had more than Pornhub, which is for adults. Pornhub reported 13,000 CSAMs, 13,000 compared to Facebook's 20.3 million, Snapchat's 155,000. So the information about that is that people with nefarious intentions don't go to places like, that you would think they would be really prevalent, right? They don't. They go to social networking that looks innocent and looks, like everything's probably copacetic and fine. So, and they're also going to go someplace where they can go one-on-one with a young person. And Facebook, unfortunately, is where a lot of predators go because there's so much information about young people and all people of all ages, but young people online. So if I live in, I'm in North Carolina, and if I'm living in Raleigh and I have nefarious intentions, I'm going to go to Facebook and type in Raleigh and do extensive searches and see what comes up. And I can guarantee you that the majority of parents don't know this, but if the world can see your posts, everybody who is a predator will start looking for information that you might think is innocent, or the parent might think is innocent. I'm taking Tammy to dance. It's her Wednesday 3 o'clock dance over at such and such dance company. Here's some pictures of her dancing. And then they gather all this personal information, which makes it a lot easier to approach a child online or offline. But normally they start now with the online world, and they practice in the online world and then move to the offline world. So they could say, oh yeah, I know your mom. She's XYZ, and you go to dance every Wednesday, and I'm supposed to pick you up today. And they just know all this information because we all share so much information and we don't use privacy. So it's really important to use as much privacy tools as you can. And also, unfortunately, every time Facebook updates Facebook, everything reverts back to public and not private. Now, they are better about saying, hey, it's been 3 months. Do you want to check your privacy? And it also isn't easy. You can't just press a button. You have to go through a cookie crumb and try to find your way through a trail. But it's important to do that, just because we are so used to sharing information that anybody can get to it. Anybody can get to information now about kids. So, and there's another thing to consider and I'm heavily involved in the rights of children. And now that's a whole industry because parents, again, unknowingly, are posting pictures of their kids from the time they're born, and their kids don't want all that information online, but they don't have any choice. So it's a very fine line. So I try to think about, would I put this in the center of my town on a telephone pole? Would I put this post or this picture on a telephone pole and for the whole town to see? unless I'm using privacy tools. And I'm pretty fastidious about it. But as I said, Facebook does every once in a while um, change how they revert back to public. So you have to stay on top of that. Or you might make something public so it's shareable, and then you forget to go back and change it back to private, and then everything you post is public again. So it's complicated. Um, so here's the good news, though, and I think I already told you that about 93-94% of the online world and the content in that world is great. It's inspiring, and especially for young people. And there are not old men in raincoats in their basements trying to pounce on children. Um, Predators are every age, every race, every gender, and uh, luckily the minority of what happens online and also offline, but it's much more prevalent offline than in the online world. There are very few cases where a stranger has met a young person online and then met them offline and abducted or hurt them. Very few. It just doesn't happen, especially now that parents have grown up online. And the other thing that we've found over the years is that kids who are at risk online are also, yes, online are also usually at risk offline. So if you're engaged with your child or teen, there's a lot less chance that there'll be any problems with them meeting somebody they don't know. Even if it's just an online relationship, it can be very hard and damaging. And things that you already know, get your kids outside, out into the world, and involved in community service, that sort of thing. And one of my friends lives in Seattle, and where I was born and raised, and her name is Linda Criddle, and she and I are the oldest people in this industry, and she preceded me by about a year or two. She invented what we now know as e-commerce for Amazon in the early days, and she was one of the original online criminal detection experts. And so she always said, you have to teach your children to look both ways before they cross the street. So this is what we need to do in the online world, is look both ways. And so we teach them to look both ways, and then we trust them until they give us a valid reason to be concerned or not to be trusted. So here's what I'd say. Here's what to do when trust is broken. First thing is to stay calm. It's really hard to do as a parent when you find something shocking, appalling, unbelievable that's happened with your child. And it might just be some texts, it might just be a picture. It's hard to know, but before any of us should jump to conclusions, we should take a breath. Don't react right then. Find someone to talk to, and that might be a therapist, a school counselor, a pastor, a best friend, somebody you trust that's not going to go talking about this, a family member, before you react. And nothing is ever so urgent that you can't gather info and be calm first. If it's that urgent, you need to call the police. Wait to react. Give your child the benefit of the doubt before you reach any conclusions. You don't know what the circumstances are. No matter what you see, a photo or text doesn't capture everything that's possibly involved. So it is our tendency to be shocked and think this is what's happened because we've read about it in the news or heard about it or seen a movie about it, a made-for-TV movie, or something sensationalized. But out of context, we don't really know what the situation is. So here's an example. 5 years ago, a young, I guess she was 10-year-old girl in Manchester in the UK, put a post up that said, we shouldn't be so hard on cutters. They need our love and support. And she put up a picture that she found on, I don't know, Reddit or some website, that of somebody who had been cutting their arms, and there's a lot of that. There's those communities, right, online. Oh, it's just horrible, especially on Instagram. There's nothing good about Instagram, and even as an adult, there's a lot of creepy stuff in there. But it's prevalent, and it's not good. Just so you know. But so she posted the picture and then said that, and her friend went to her mother and said, "Oh, so and so posted this," and I think she's a cutter. And the mother didn't read the whole post, saw the picture of the arm that she had found online, that the young girl had found online, and didn't read the post and called the Manchester police and didn't contact us first. And the Manchester police called, and I spent 5 days on the phone with 10 different people in Manchester trying to explain to them what had actually happened. And I sent all the information that we had of everything she had posted, and I showed them where the post originated from, because just so you know, if you find a post that's making you pretty nervous, there's something called geolocation. And my contact information, ACT will have, and they will share it with you. And you're always welcome to contact me and ask me for help, and I'm happy to help you. But you can geolocate any photo, which is good and bad. The bad part is if you put up a photo and it hasn't been scrubbed of geolocation, somebody can right click on it and see that you were in Iowa, and what town and city and exactly what street corner you were on when you took the picture or whatever, or where you're not, maybe not your house number, but pretty close. So you have to be careful about posting photos and where you post them. But anyway, oops, sorry, I'm going to have, hello, my cat. So a photo or text doesn't capture everything, and so you want to gather all the information that you possibly can before you decide this has happened or that's happened. It could just be they've put up a picture of somebody they know, of somebody they don't know, and they're taught there, and it was in a response to something else. You have to get context and not assume that they're into something horrible, dangerous, or illegal. So gather information, try to take a breath, gather all the information you can, wait to react, and then be supportive when you go to them. Don't threaten to go to law enforcement or school, or you just gather the information, then ask for professional help and decide what to do. Don't mention anybody's parents, teachers, law enforcement, etc. to your children or teens at the time that you're first talking to them at all during your first discussion, because all that's going to do is send adrenaline through their body, and they're going to think of everything they can think of to make that not happen, and or to take the risk off of themselves, right? Remain calm and get as much information as you can without shaming or disbelief. So that might take some role playing. If your child is possibly caught up in some sexting distribution, be extra supportive and let them know you're going to help them fix the problem. So you might need to role play, and I'm happy to do that with anybody who needs the help too. And that means staying neutral about whatever it is that you found, and not losing your mind. There is nothing easy about doing that. I haven't been through it myself. I've been through it online with lots of parents, but my kids were much older, and so we just didn't have those issues. But it is very hard. I have had somebody in my family who was, I'm not going to go too far but was abused sexually by a family doctor. This is not uncommon. And when I found out, I just about lost my mind, and I had to really just keep calm, because here I am in the business and this is happening in my extended family. And I found myself just in this rage, and not at the person in my family, but just it's just so hard. So I had to stop and take a breath and call a lawyer and say, okay, what do I do? And what's the smart thing to do here? Or there's lots of resources. NCMEC and National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have hotlines, and ACT can probably help. I mean, there's lots of people to go to. So you want to put some distance and time in between what you found, unless it's dangerous, and then you just call the police right away. And so you can gather information and figure out what your plan is, and be extra supportive and let them know, I'm going to help you through this, instead of, I can't believe you behaved like this. We don't know all the circumstances. Often, especially young girls and young boys, fall victim to blackmail. And it's blackmail that you or I would think, why would you do that over something like this? But to them, it's very important. So, case in point, somebody gets to know somebody online and thinks they're a teen, thinks they're their friend, whatever. And they're talking about, I don't like my parents, I'm mad at my sister, my teacher, I can't stand my teacher, my best friend is this and that. They start disclosing lots of personal information and dislikes and frustrations. And that person says, if you don't give me one picture of yourself nude or whatever it is that they ask for, I'm going to put it all on Facebook, everything that you've said. And they usually have their passwords. And they really believe at age 12 and 10 that if they just do that one thing, they're off the hook. But actually what happens is, as we know, if they do that one thing, they're on the hook, and it gets worse and worse. And they get over their heads. Now this is a 1% that this happens to. So it's not an everyday occurrence for everybody. But vulnerable young people don't know that people lie to them. They just, especially between about 8 and 9 and 15, 14, they believe everything anybody tells them. And try to remember yourself at that age too, right? So it's really important to be supportive and say, we're going to fix this, instead of finding blame and being ashamed and that sort of thing. They need support, and they need to know that somebody can help them, because kids who don't have that kind of support are the ones who end up in big trouble, or in very, very rare circumstances. I'm sure you've read about kids who've committed suicide and that sort of thing. It doesn't happen very often, but the pressure can be so much. If they don't have any support system, that's what happens. And they honestly didn't get into it because they were deviants. They really believed, okay, if I just do this one thing, they'll go away, but they never do. So they never go away. So as I said, this is a particularly vulnerable situation. This is a particularly vulnerable situation for children and teens. They face scrutiny from peers at school or in the community, and most of those peers are equally guilty, but just didn't get caught and conveniently don't consider that. So they're facing peer judgment, and who will they go to? If as parents we do the same, if as teachers we do the same, if as law enforcement we did the same, who will they have to go to? So they're also likely ashamed, embarrassed. And imagine if your parents caught you with your boyfriend or girlfriend as a teen. Whew, it wasn't pretty. So, and then also remember that you're not alone. Parents all over the world are facing the same issues with their children. I can tell you, just from experience of doing this for so long, a lot of kids attempt to do something that is the industry calls cyber sex. If you read the logs, you would think it was ridiculous, because it's not even anything close to sexual activity. But they're trying things out. So we don't allow it in the industry, and we have filters, so it never really gets through. But you can see where they've tried to do something, or they try to change the language to do something. If we see persistent behavior, we know that there's a problem with that person. That person might not be a child. They might be a teen, they might not be. I've seen 14-year-old teenagers who were sociopaths, and people don't wake up at 21 sociopaths. It starts about 8. So Nobody wants to hear that either, but it's not something doesn't happen. A switch doesn't go off when you're 21 that makes you a sociopath. It starts very early. And so again, they're very few and far between. We're going to get to the happy stuff at the end of all this. So then you take action. So also you can contact me. Absolutely. There are many resources. And I'll give you my professional opinion, and I will not report anything that you are not already, if you're already in the middle of reporting it, I won't get involved. If you need my help, I will get involved. And I'll also let you know whether I think it's something that's worth reporting. It's hard to know. I've been doing this a long time, so I know what's something to worry about and what's not. And remember, there's literally millions of people between the ages of about 12 and 18 who engage in something related to cybersex or sexting. So it's not that unusual. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's not unusual. So don't feel like you're the only person with a child that might have been engaged in something like that. And then how do you balance your parenting online? So when you take action, decide how to best proceed and follow through. It's really important to follow through, reminding the child that they are your charge. You are responsible for them until they're 18 or 16, whatever your state laws are, and that you're doing what you believe is best for them. And they're not going to like it, but in the end, they're going to be really happy that or maybe not happy. They're going to be grateful that you took charge and said, we're going to fix this problem, whatever it takes, we're going to fix this problem. And they'll respond to that. They'll respond well to that. So how do we balance? So first of all, I should maybe stop and see if anybody has any questions. And I guess if you do, please type them in the chat and we will pay attention, and I'll stop what I'm doing. So how do we balance parenting online? So how do you give kids space and still not worry about them, right? You don't want to hover. You don't want to hover or snoop. They have to give you cause. So once they've crossed a line and you determine whatever that line is, then you say, you've crossed a line, so this is the consequence of crossing that line. We have to monitor what you're doing on your phone and online. But up until they cross that line, I am not an advocate of snooping on kids. I don't think it's fair. It's like reading somebody's diary. I don't think it's okay. I'm just looking to see if anybody has any questions. Okay. So take a genuine interest in their online lives and gaming, etc. You don't have to be the world's best Fortnite player, but ask them about the game. Especially the younger they are, the more they'll be interested in talking to you. My 5-year-old grandson plays Roblox and and Minecraft, and he will not stop talking about it. And if I'm honest, I'm not that interested in it, but I love him. So I will listen to him and look at what he's built and talk to him about it until the cows come home, because I know that he'll talk to me about everything that's going on in his life if I listen. So listening is very important. Use parental controls whenever possible, and use reasonable parental controls whenever possible. I know it takes time, but it's sort of like teaching your kids to shut the door, look both ways. It takes time up front, but then in the long run, you won't have nearly as many problems because you'll be able to control how much they play online, whether they talk to people they don't know online, whether they can have private chat, that sort of thing. And I'm doing one little tiny advertisement for Super Awesome. We have something called KWS, Kids Web Services. And this is something I've been advocating for since about 2009. And it's a place where the parent signs up one time and we vet the games. So you can be sure when you sign up, and this is in my information here, but if you go to superawesome.com and look up KWS, you can go sign up there, and it's $1, and it's only $1 because we have to know you are who you say you are through your credit card. That's if you use a credit card, it's $1. And so we want to know so we can get to the parents in case something's happened with the child, but in a game or something like that. But if you sign up, we do all the vetting, and you can be sure that any game that we're part of or involved in or promoting has excellent moderation tools, human moderators, and good community managers and safety experts to make sure that the kids are safe and still having a great time. So it's not so locked down that they can't do anything. But we also have ways from being in this industry for so long of knowing when something isn't right, and we take care of it behind the scenes and remove and report people that we suspect might be problematic to a child, a potential problem to a child. Join and follow Common Sense Media. It is a great resource for parents if you just Google Common Sense Media. They're just so good at what they're doing, and they've been at this a long time, and they send out a weekly newsletter, and they're just a great resource. And so I implore you to, if you do nothing else, go to Common Sense Media and sign up for their newsletter. So what do you do if you find CSAM? In my opinion, the best thing to do is the first thing that you do is something that is actually what you don't do. You don't download material ever. Do not share the material even when reporting it, like with law enforcement or anybody. This can backfire and be taken out of context and get you in huge legal trouble. It is illegal to share, post, distribute child sexual exploitation images or abuse images. Even if you see it, do not screen capture, do not download, stop what you're doing. If you see something that is clearly child sexual abuse, stop what you're doing, leave the screen exactly how it is, and call the police. Call 911 and say, I'm online, this is what I'm seeing. I know it's illegal for me to download this or send it to you. If somebody's in a small town and says, oh, send it to me, don't do it. You can end up in all kinds of trouble innocently. So, and if you have to, just leave it sitting there, leave your screen there as long as you can. And you can email me, and because I can legally screen capture, so we could share a screen or something. There are several people. Law enforcement can do the same thing in your own town. So find somebody who can legally screen capture and deal with the problem. But don't get involved, and certainly don't try to trap anybody if you suspect somebody of that. Oh my God, you can end up in so much legal trouble. And trying to explain that to law enforcement, oh, it wasn't me, I was just trying to catch this person. It's a bad plan. So just so you know, teens sexting, sharing this material is illegal. So a teen can be prosecuted and labeled as a sex offender for life for sharing and sexting and for distributing those pictures or information. It happens regularly. Anyone under 18, it's a federal law. It is against the law. So that it wouldn't hurt to remind your young people and teens and in the household that it is a federal offense, and that it happens to people all the time. They get on the sex offenders list without meaning to. So never a good idea to take a naked picture of your selfie, ever, and share it. Never a good idea. Because it will get out. If they send it to somebody in their best friend or school, the next thing you know, somebody gets in the phone and it'll get out. And then you've got a whole big nightmare on your hands that can be dealt with, but takes a lot of time and trouble and a lot of emotional energy and sadness in the household while it all is going down. So first, don't download. Second, report it to the platform immediately, whatever platform you're on. So if you're on Instagram, or you see something on your child's computer or phone on Instagram, there's always a report button. Report it immediately and leave it to that platform, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever it is that they are. Report it and leave it to them. I have been in this industry a long time. All my colleagues work for the largest to the smallest apps, games, and websites, and everybody does report. So if they receive the report, they will deal with it, and you don't ever have to deal with it again. If it's your own child, it's complicated. I would delete it and tell the child, well, it gets complicated. You need to contact me or law enforcement about what to do. So let's see. If you go to thorn.org, there's a whole page for instructions of what to do if you find something you suspect as CSAM. I've also got it on this document that I'm going to share with you. Report it to Cyber Tip Line, and that's through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. If you go to ncmec.org, they have a big graphic that you can click on that says Cyber Tip Line. It's critical you report anything you find to Cyber Tip Line and give them all the information you can as a parent. And they follow through on every single report they receive. They received 140 or 60,000 reports last year in the US. And they are a great organization and are so good at what they do. So go to Cyber Tip Line. If you find sex trafficking, there's a national human trafficking hotline, or you suspect it. And I've got that on this sheet as well, and we'll be happy to share it with you. If you or your child is a victim of explicit content being shared without consent, the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative has a guide, and it'll tell you how to get that taken down, because that's one of the biggest problems, is how do I get this taken down when somebody else has posted it? And this is on my sheet too, so they can help you get that down. Some people will try to blackmail you and say, if you send me $10,000, I'll take it down. Don't get involved in that. Just don't do that. Go to law enforcement and go to Cyber Civil Rights and get them to help you. Practice wellness. Take care of yourself and or your child. Take a breath. Go for a walk. Call a crisis hotline. Get therapy or help with the appropriate professional. The appropriate professional is not your neighbor, is not your mother, and is not your teenage son or daughter. An appropriate professional is somebody who specifically works in this industry and knows how to help you and how to make you feel better, because that's the first and most important thing. When it can be disturbing and distressing and cause trauma to see some of this material if you ever see it. I hope that you never do, but if you do, it can be, or for your child it can cause trauma. So finding a professional is very important, and getting that support you need and feeling better is the most important thing, because until you feel better, none of us can think straight and do the next right thing and take the next right step. So I can't tell you how important it is to have somebody neutral who's not going to get emotional and doesn't know you or your child to talk to. And then I'm going to say it one more time: sign up for Kids Web Services, or I don't know anybody else. There's a Privacy Check, cheq.com. They also do this. They're the only two companies I know that do this. But and get peace of mind for where your kid goes online, or where your child or teen goes online. And because vetting the games for age appropriateness is very important. So that's my sort of serious, intense stuff. So what I want to show you is some happy stuff. I hope that you're up for happy stuff. So here, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see which screen. I'm going to share this screen. So let me see if I can, sorry about the everything around it, but hopefully you can see. Let me see if I can view slideshow. Okay. Oh, well, I'm going to zip through all these and get to that picture. Whoops. So I just want to show you some of the great stuff that young people of all ages do online. So in our app, PopJam, there's a lot of emphasis on what is your interest. Do you like shoes? Well, then they'll put a bunch of pictures up of all the shoes they love. Do you like horses? They'll put up a lot of pictures. Do you like art? Do you like to draw? So let me move this. So these are some of the things that some of our artists draw within PopJam. And it's, whoops, what happened? Oh, okay. It's astounding to me how well these young people, some of these kids, they're between 8 and 12, draw, and the things that they share, and they get followers for their art and that sort of thing. So these are some examples of some of the creative things that kids do in the online world that you might never get a chance to see. I would be surprised if kids say, Mom, come look at my, or Dad, come look at my picture that I drew online. I mean, maybe around 8 they do that, but around teenagers never do that. Teenagers don't want you to know how good they are at what they do. But I just want you to know. I want you to know. So here's some fun things that they do. These are games that they make up for each other. So give these shells a name. Does your Easter include marshmallows? Yes or no? Where do you go when you dream? Name your new horse. And they just do all these creative things. Where's the elephant going? Here's a favorite artist that we have in PopJam. These are our colors that we use in PopJam for our logos. And they do all this beautiful, beautiful work. And, you know, this takes a lot of time and energy to do digitally. This isn't done with magic markers. This is done with digital a mouse or pens or something. It's just beautiful. So I just want you to see all this beautiful creative stuff that kids do. And here's somebody that did a collage of all their stuff. It's just gorgeous. I just love it. And then they share with each other. How do you do that? And somebody says, I used the roto brush on number 6, then drew a rough flower shape, then used black for the background, etc., etc. So they like to collaborate, and they like to work together, and they like to teach each other how to do things. It's just beautiful. The drawing especially, and I can remember being 100 years ago when I was in grade school and even junior high, and we would show each other how to draw, you know, unicorns or ponies or something, and we'd all work really hard to make the best pony or something. Trolls were big when I was a kid. So I just think it's gorgeous that they do all this, and I think it's so lovely. And then here's somebody that did a picture of all the people they thought of as Avengers and stuff, and it was so fun. I just loved it. And they did this in collaboration, and they when you at somebody, then you let them know, like, you're in this picture, or, you know, I thought of you when I did this. So that was cool. This is a kid who did our PopJam logos by hand. We have some very fancy PopJam logos like this, but they did all this by hand, and I thought they were gorgeous. And I'm gonna, okay, so these are what kids, they shared with us, things that they made, cakes, etc. It's hard to know how much of this, some of those are obviously things that kids make, and some of those are obviously things that people in bakeries made, I think. So I don't know, maybe not. Then Lego creations, they share that with us, which I love. I just love all the Lego stuff, and I love the mantelpiece. It's made out of Legos. It's so great. And there's just a little, all these little Lego people, so cute. Now these are younger kids sharing the stuff that they do with us, and I just love the younger kids. This is closer to the 8 and 7-year-old group, all this work down here, but it's really fun. That piggy bank is really sweet, and the rocks that they painted. And then a kid, here's a kid that says, draw your favorite painting. So, oh, that's a 6-year-old. Sorry, let me just sort of get through. Well, anyway, one of the biggest problems we have on PopJam, I'm going to try to find some more interesting stuff for you, is kids stealing art from each other. So here's some more, which is pretty good. This is one of our artists and the things that he draws and shares with kids. And then here's some stuff that kids found and put up and thought was fun and cool. Here's some old art that they found. And then this is all what's called fan art. So they're fans of different staff members, and they draw pictures for them and send them to them. So what is one of the staff members. He's our artist our on staff artist. And there's somebody drew a little fox. Hope you're not bored with this. I just think this stuff is so amazing, that all this beautiful stuff that kids do, and it's so creative. And in a world where there's so much gaming and there's so much violence in the gaming, here's this world where they're all doing all this creative stuff with each other and for each other. And it makes me so happy. I feel like I'm so lucky to be in this world of creativity and with kids doing cool stuff. So we do not allow selfies. So if you take a selfie, you have to go use stickers to cover up your mouth and face, and you have to put glasses around your eyes. And we're very careful about what we allow online. We don't allow school uniforms. We look in the background to make sure that there's nothing that can give away where the child lives or goes to school or goes to church or goes to community, this or that. And this is more fan art. And let me see if I can find anything else. Here's some very young art. People drawing pictures of Music Man. He's one of our staff members. And it's really just more of the same, but I just love all this. And I just wanted to end on something that was positive, and so you could see all the beautiful stuff that kids do. So I'll stop sharing now. So that's what I have to share, and I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has any questions.
If you have any questions for Alaska Children's Trust as well, I'm happy to answer them. I know we have a small group today, but
That's okay.
Will
Small
be
but mighty.
This recording will be available on our website shortly, and so will all of the materials that Rebecca talked about today. And they'll also be emailed out to you, you three, as webinar registered.
Awesome.
So you'll get them as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you, small but mighty crowd, for being here. And I hope that somebody's learned something, and feel free to reach me, and ACT has my information, and I'll share this document with them as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.